welcome to this video talking about advanced metrics, specifically levels, transformations, and conditions. Just to make things a little bit faster, I just created a few metrics and we'll work through them and show you how they operate. I created a test report. Let me show you what I created. And here I tried to mix things up. I added a region, quarter, so this is a time dimension, this is geography dimension, added the revenue metric. This is from the MicroStrategy tutorial. I also added the category and report objects, meaning I'm grouping by it, but I'm not necessarily selecting it and displaying it. And I also added a filter. I created the year in list 2008. Let me run this report and see what I get. And here we'll get 3 columns of data, all the regions in my data, and the quarters. So it's only showing 2008 because we only filtered by 2008. So if you scroll up, say this is the filter. So we filtered by 2000 and we show in the revenue. So this revenue, 260,000, is at the first quarter of 2008 for the central region. And if you want to break it down by category, you can just double click here and it'll show you by the different categories. It'll start breaking it down, but we're not interested. Let's just keep it at the quarter level and see some fun operations. So this revenue metric is the sum of the revenue. Here, let me show you. This is not, I didn't create it, it was just based on the revenue fact, okay? So, sorry, did I not show that? Edit. Based on the sum of the revenue fact, okay? So, what I want to do here is I want to create a few other metrics. I've created these just for speed. So let's try the year revenue. The year revenue is the same things, but what I did is I manipulated, I click on level, and I added the year. I went here and just double click on year and it gets added. And I kept everything as standard, just the default. I just want to show you the simple level. So what am I saying here? I want the revenue calculated at a year level, not at the report level only. Okay? So I'm adding to this. So let's take my revenue. Let me go to edit mode. Take my typical revenue out and I'll add my year revenue in and see what happens. So I'm going to run my report. There you go. For every region, my year revenue is one number. Because what am I saying? Saying this revenue is not just for this quarter, it is for the whole year, 2008, for central region. Similar thing for this region, for this region, for this region, etc. So as you start seeing this, this is allowing me to see the yearly revenue, even though the template is breaking down the data at the quarter. So what am I going to expect in the SQL? I'm going to expect 2 passes, right? Or multiple passes, I should say. In first pass, it'll calculate the revenue, but notice it's adding the region here and adding the filter and grouping by region and category and year. So this is the typical pass. But then what it does, it repeats that value. So instead of breaking it down at the quarter level, see, ignored the quarter in this pass. There's no quarter. It brings the quarter in the second pass, the quarter, but it doesn't group by the quarter. It keeps the grouping from the first pass, year, region, category. And what it does, it takes that revenue, it aliased it as WJXBSFS1. So there's the alias. And it repeats it for all the quarters in one region. And it repeats it over and over. So that's what you get when you run the report. You get a repeat. One pass calculates this number and another pass repeats it for all the quarters in that one region. Straightforward. Now let's mix it up a little bit. Instead of just the year revenue, I want to create all years revenue, which means regardless of what region it is, I want the revenue of the whole report. So what do? There was a report level, I removed it, and I said don't filter on year, because I want all years, not just 2008, bundled up. So let's see what that does for us. All years. I think you should expect a bigger number at least. There it is. So what is it saying for us? It's saying for all years, not just 2008, for all years, show me the revenue. This is really not useful if you think about it from a business perspective, but you can make use of it depending on what other attributes you have on the report. So let's look at the SQL where it really matters. First pass, region, category, sum, just as expected, like the first one. Second pass is at the year level, 2008. So look what it's doing. It's calculating the revenue for the whole year, 2008. So it's only grouping by the year 2008, and then it starts repeating the values to break them down according to the template. So what do I get here? So for 2008 there was this much, 1.1 billion, I guess, for 2008. So this is the 2008 revenue, regardless of region, regardless of quarter, across the board. And I created another one which I called it national revenue. This case, unlike the all years revenue, I said, well, even though I have the year, I just don't want to group by the region. So instead, it's a national level. So it's not going beyond the report. It's not ignoring the report level. It's just ignoring the grouping. Okay, so let me do that here. Let's put it in between. All right. As expected, it's a big number, but it's in between the all years. So instead of all the 2008, it's going in between. It's saying all by revenue, by region. Okay, so let me look at this. Show you what it did to us. First pass is the same. The first pass is going to be the same for all these. This is the all year by 2008. And this is the newly added. And this one takes in the report. Now remember, I had category in the report object, so it took that into consideration. Okay, unlike the all year, which had no reference to what was on the report, it just hit the year. Here it says, well, even though you're telling me to ignore the revenue, I see something else on the report called category, and I'm going to take that into consideration. So it bundles things up again, similar to the previous one, but here, when you run it, it is showing you the national average across all regions for that year, 2008, where that region sold an item. So here it's making that linkage between, instead of absolutely just going against the data and bringing all the years, it's saying there was a condition, there was a category that was conditioned. So it's not going to sum up anything, any category that was not sold at these regions right here. So if these regions did not include a category, it's not going to be included here, but it will be included here. This makes a little bit more sense when you start adding the category and looking into detail. All of a sudden, boom, because this one took into consider a category, when I added it to the report, now it is broken by the category level as expected. But notice 6 million is going to be repeated here and here and here and here. It's going to keep getting repeated, because although the national level was ignoring the regions, it was not told to ignore the category. This one, however, was told to ignore any breakdown at this level and just look at the year. So here it's looking at the year associated with these categories, these quarters, and these regions. And notice that all year's revenue was reduced from 1 billion because now it has to also group by category. It doesn't have to filter by it, but it also has to group by it, i.e. break down your rows by that level. So it's reducing its operational area from any category to these categories. So it reduces the number down. And if you look at the SQL, this starts to make sense. We still have that first pass, 2008. We're going to have that all year. But notice this. It changed our source. It's hitting a table from the category sales. It used to hit it from all the yearly sales. So by going by the category sales in the last pass and breaking it down by the category, my default sum, or the sum, is a little bit different because the join is also including a join on the category equals category, not just the year equals the year. So instead of just doing boom, all years for any category, it's doing all years for specifically these categories, so you get a smaller subset of the data. It's really confusing, I understand, but really this is how MicroStrategy operates. You tell it what level, you tell it how to operate, you tell it what to filter by, and it knows what you're talking about, and it makes sense out of it in the SQL. So if you're not sure, always refer to the SQL, manipulate them, try different things. Many times there's going to be a lot of trial and error to get things right. Before I close, or after I close this, I want to talk about conditions and transformations. I want to create two metrics, and I'm going to use the revenue since we're using it. But here I'm going to add a condition. Let's see if I have a time. I don't like this fixed year section. Previous year, okay. So I want to create a new filter, and I'm just going to call it the year. Bring in the year 2008, save it and close it, and call it year 2008. I'm using 2008 because the tutorial has 2008 data. We're not in 2008, fortunately. Okay, so now I'm going to browse and bring in 2008. Actually, I saved it into, I believe, my reports. There it is. And I'm going to call this revenue 2008. Okay. And I'm going to create a simple report to demonstrate what I did. And public folder, reports, revenue 2008. And let me bring a dimension as well. Let me bring in, this will be interesting. Let me bring in time. Let me bring in year. See what it does. Alright, so even though I don't have a filter on my report, don't have any filter in the report, see, it's an empty filter. I do filter by 2008, and the SQL is going to look simple. And it's going to say, okay, go ahead, bring my total for where 2000. So even though I didn't add a where clause or a filter in the report, by adding a condition on the metric, it did that for me. So you're going to wonder, well, what does that do for me? Well, let me show you something neat. Let's say if I go to a, let's see, did we have other metrics that we can use? Alright, let's look at the national revenue and run this. Alright, this is an outer join. So what is it doing? It's saying, okay, for this metric, revenue 2008, I'm only showing for this year. For this one, the national revenue metric, it's showing for all years. Okay, so in essence, by adding the filter in the metric, I only filter this row, this column, rather than all the report. So I still have the freedom to have other metrics that filter differently, and this metric would only have this column. So this is kind of how we use it. You start using it for controlling what rows to display and how your metrics generates data, etc. So if you didn't have year, you had something else here. Let's do that and test it. Let's just add an attribute. Let's add a product, and let's add a by category. Let's take the year out and see what happens. Alright, so I have 4 categories in my data. This is the revenue for 2008, and this is the revenue across all years, because there's no year filter. And if I added the region, I could go back and add a region and geography. If I add the region, let's do region category. And run. For each region, for each category in that region, I'll have the revenue for 2008 and the national revenue. So notice that this number is the same as this number, is the same as this number, and keeps repeating, because this metric that we just created 10 minutes ago was going across all regions. So it was ignoring the region breakdown. It was not grouping by region. So this number is not associated with the region. It's associated with all the regions. Hence, but this one is associated with the region. So 98 is for Central 2008. 86 is for 2008 Mid-Atlantic. 165 2008 Northwest. This value is simply the revenue, not 2008 and not for Northeast. For all these regions, for any year, because we don't have a year filter. So you see how conditions and levels start working together to create some really neat reports for you. So you have ultimate full control, and the more you add, the SQL starts adding more passes. So you get the first pass at the region category, you get another pass just at the category, you get a final pass that puts things together. So you get one metric, another metric, in a different pass. So one metric filters by the year and groups by category. The other one does not filter by year, there's no where clause, and ignores anything on the report such as region, and only goes by the category. And then when you break them down, it starts doing that repetition, that placement by region, by etc., and starts matching on category IDs or region IDs depending on what you have to join on your lookup tables. It's very simple yet very powerful. Okay? And the last thing I want to talk about is the transformation. So let me take the regional off. Let me just keep it revenue 2008. Save and close. I'm going to call it revenue 2008 report. Alright. So let's say I want to do something like 2000 and let's see. Let's change this. So I'm gonna, instead of revenue 2008, let's say I want to create a new filter. Okay, and call it year 2009. Oops, year. I have to choose 2009. Okay, okay. Save and close. Year 2009. Alright, and let's say I want to create a revenue 2009. I'm going to copy this and paste it and call it, rename it to revenue 2009. Then I'm going to edit it, go to the condition, clear the condition, and add my new filter 2009. Save and close. So now I have a new revenue. I'm going to go to my report, my revenue report, edit it, and sorry, this report, edit it, and it had revenue 2008. I'm going to add to it the revenue 2009. I'm going to take the national revenue out because I'm not interested in it. Okay, let me run this. So now I'm going to have the revenue for 2008 and the revenue for 2009. Again, 2 passes. This pass will have the 2008 or 2009 because each pass represents 1 column. So it's going to do this or this, going to bring the data for 2, and then in the where clause, MicroStrategy does this GODW flag. It starts flagging them separately such that it can differentiate in sorting them out, which one goes to 2008, which one 2000. Don't worry too much about what these mean, but what it's trying to do is bring in the data bundled up and then unbundles it right here. So it's, if you want to get into the engine, you can get into it, but it's bundling it, and it's doing this for an optimization purpose. It's trying to, instead of having 1 pass for 2008, 1 pass for 2009, it says 1 pass can bring 8 or 9 data, and then I will unbundle it right here. So this is the intention of this clause. But let me do this in a different way. Let's try to do this in a different way. Let's do a transformation on this. So let me create a new transformation. New transformation. Okay, on time, on year. So I'm going to go to the time lookup. So look up here. I'm going to take the year ID -1. Okay, so I'm doing a transformation. I'm saying give me the year ID and subtract 1. So if it's 2009, get 2008. I'll call it year trans -1. So I'm just trying to define it. Okay, saving the transformation. I just created a simple transformation. We're not getting to the detailed transformations. And then I'm going to go to my 2009 report, revenue metric, and instead of having a condition of 2009, or sorry, I'm going to go to the 2008, 2009, sorry, go to and I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to add a transformation. And I'm going to add my transformation, which is in the public folders. Here it is. Okay. I'm going to save this as transformed. And let me add the 2009 filter. Shouldn't have taken it off, but forgot what I was trying to do for a minute. So even though I'm filtering 2008, I'm going to return 2008. I mean, filtering 2009, I should expect 2008. Save and close. Alrighty. So let's make sure we know what we're doing. We got a metric here, and we got a one that is transformed. I'm just going to call it from 2009. Alright. I know I'm confusing you right now, but you'll see it all come together. And let me just take this metric off, the revenue, take this filter off, and let's just do my transformed, drag it here. Don't want category, remove from report. And let's keep these 2 and see what happens. Okay. I should update the schema right here because I created a new transformation. Just update the schema quickly. That error meant that you created something that requires a schema update. And then Let's go to this report. Alright, and let's add the new report transformed. And let's see what happens. Look at this. Revenue 2008 transformed from 2009 matches revenue 2008. Except it's created differently, right? So let me remove these from the report. I'm removing them so we can look at the SQL and not have to worry about the other passes. Great. So let's see what the SQL looks like. And the SQL should be simple. So what is it doing? It's saying give me the region, give me the category, give me the revenue. Notice this, the year ID in instead of 2009, 2009 minus 1, which if you know how to do your math is 2008. So what did this allow us to do? Instead of creating a filter 2008 and adding the filter into the report, I can manipulate the transformation such that it allows me to go back and forth in my dimension between the data. So in this case, if it was year ID, I was going back 1 year back. So my transformation allowed me to create a new revenue 2008 without using a 2008 filter. I used actually the 2009 filter, but I subtracted 1 from the ID, and bam, what do I get? I get a transferization. I'm back to 2008 data. This is probably not the best way to use it. It's not productive necessarily because you could have used the filter, but I wanted you to see how I was able to recreate the revenue 2008 without using the 2008 filter, but using a transformation based on the 2009 filter. So there you go. Now you got a neat way of doing things in a different way using the levels, conditions, transformations. So if you noticed, a lot of things can be done in multiple ways. It depends on what you need. This starts getting more useful when you have multiple things going on in the report and you want to just control one column at a time and make it do one specific thing. Sometimes the transformation will work better. Sometimes the transformation will not work because you don't want 2009 data, you just want 2008, so you want to use the 2008 filter. And just kind of put everything in perspective and use all these different ideas that I'm giving you here to create your reports. Okay? And thanks, and we'll see you soon.